All right, now that we've seen how to run code from a file, we can start writing slightly longer, slightly more complex scripts. To add logic into our code, to actually make decisions, the key mechanism we use is something called a conditional statement. Now, a conditional statement can have three different pieces: an if, an else if, and an else. And we'll go through them in order, and we're going to start with if. So if allows us to run certain code if a given condition is true. We spent a healthy amount of time talking about these different operators, and they all evaluate to true or false. They all evaluate to a Boolean. Now we can use them inside of a conditional where we end up with either a true or a false, and if that thing is true, if the condition is true, our code will run. So let me show you the simplest example that we could do. I'm working in an app.js file. It's connected to my index.html. I have my index opened up over here. I'm looking at the console. Let's delete what I had in there. I'll close down my sidebar. The simplest possible conditional looks like this. If something, this isn't valid as it is right now, but if some condition that becomes either true or false, if it's true, run the code in here. So let's do something like if 1 equals 1, console.log, it's true. We'll save. I'll refresh my page, and we end up with it's true. This code runs. If this becomes true, if you were to copy that and paste it here, we get true. Now, if we did something like this, if 1 is not equal to 1, we know that that is false. It gives us false. I'll refresh my page now, and we don't see anything. This code does not run. So we've written our first simple piece of logic, our first decision that actually impacts which code runs based off of this condition. Now we'll learn how to write much more complex ones, but let's take a look at a couple different examples. Here's one where I'm modeling a typical performance review you might have at a company where your manager or your peers rate you on a certain scale. And we're translating that numeric rating to feedback. Like, you're a superstar, you need improvement, you meet expectations. We could model that over here. I'll just write a quick comment. Example 2, we'll have a rating variable and set it equal to 3. And we can simply check if rating is equal to 3, we'll console.log, you are a superstar. I don't know why it's all caps, but it works. We'll refresh the page, and we end up with you are a superstar. We change rating to 2. We need improvement. We don't get that printed out. We could also do something like if rating is less than 3, instead of printing you are a superstar, we could print console.log. How about we just go back to what we had? You are not a superstar, because only 3 is a superstar. I'll refresh. We don't see anything. But if I change it to 2, we get the slightly harsh feedback. You are not a superstar, in all caps. So I'm going to undo that and go back to what we had, because we're going to build on this example in just a bit. So this is the first part of a conditional. I mentioned there are 2 other things we can add on. This is checking for a single condition, and we can have multiple of these if we wanted to. We actually already have 2 of them in a single file. Both of them are being evaluated. This one is false, so that doesn't run. This one is true, so it does run. But if we change rating, it may not run. Here's one more example, nice and simple. Let's say we have a number, let num, and it's equal to 37. Let's print out something if the number is even, or let's go with something if the number is odd. How do we tell if a number is odd? We go back to that modulo operator we saw early on, the percent sign, using the remainder. So we divide by 2 and check the remainder using modulo. And if 2 goes evenly into a number, that means it's an even number. So the remainder would be 0. So for an odd number, we'll just check if the remainder is not 0. So let me show you that. If num mod 2 is not equal to 0, console.log odd number. Let's see what we get. When I refresh, we should see odd number. If I change it to 38, nothing. All right, so those are 3 simple examples of conditionals. Very short ones where we only have one piece, one condition, and if this is not the case, we just keep moving on. Whatever code comes after will be run. Next, we're going to see else if, which we can chain on with our if.